Hello, my name is Don Kramer, and I am a lay member of Milwaukee Central United Methodist Church. I have volunteered as the statistician for the Wisconsin Annual Conference for more than 10 years now. In this role, I have two goals. One, I want to improve data reporting from the local churches, and I also want to improve decision-making at the conference level based on that improved data. If you have any questions for me or concerns, my email address is up on the screen right now. Today's presentation, I have three goals. I want to give a brief overview of the annual data collection process. I want to give a year-to-year comparison of the 2023 data. And then finally, I want to give some overall characteristics of the Wisconsin Annual Conference. Each year, every church in the denomination submits data to their conferences. In Wisconsin, we do that through a software program called AC Stats. It collects information on participation, income, and expenses. We ask the Wisconsin churches to submit that information by the end of February. And then I go through that data for a couple months or so, follow up with any errors, and then I submit the Wisconsin Annual Conference's data to the General Counsel of Finance and Administration by the end of April. They go through the data, they ask me questions, they follow up with different issues, and usually that happens over the summer. And then by the end of the year, that data is then used for calculating apportionments. That's apportionments at the church level as well as the conference level. All right. Up on the screen now, you can see the 2022 data that was reported to GCFA. You can see towards the bottom of this screen, Wisconsin is right above the total. Wisconsin's one of the smaller conferences in the North Central jurisdiction with about 400 churches and about 47,000 members at the end of 2022. I want to draw your attention to the Northern Illinois Conference, which is similar size to ours, slightly fewer churches, but more members. You can see that why we are joining them with a shared Episcopal region, two of the smaller conferences within the North Central jurisdiction. However, all of the information on this page is based on local churches submitting their data to their conferences, and then the conferences combining that and submitting it to GCFA. This isn't possible without local churches doing that work. In 2023, we had around 396 local churches who are supposed to submit information in Wisconsin to the Wisconsin Annual Conference. Of those, 78% of the churches submitted their data prior to the deadline. Another 19% submitted their data eventually, usually with some strong suggestions from the conference staff. And then finally, the last 3% submitted no or partial information. This is a big improvement from last year, which is great. All right. Anytime I don't spend tracking down church leaders, I get to spend on analysis, I get to spend on error checking. Last year, we had more than 900 warnings generated by the system, and I was able to spend more time checking those errors instead of tracking down church leaders. So I really do appreciate that. One of those errors, just want to point out the types of errors we see. We had two churches submit that they had paid their pastors $2 million in salary. It was just an error of adding too many zeros in the system. They had added the cents. It was really supposed to be $20,000 in salary. I bring that up because if we didn't catch that, we really would have messed up apportionment calculations for everybody. And so anytime that we can spend more time scrubbing the data and making sure that it's good really helps everyone's experience. So I do want to extend my appreciation to those at the local churches that are are getting this information in. That's the church admins, the treasurers, the trustees, the pastors. I really do appreciate the work that you do, especially when you're getting that work in on time. This next slide shows our membership trends in Wisconsin over the last 10 years. In 2023, we ended the year with 38,680 members. If you look at the 2022 data, I indicated the membership that we lost with that little blue part of the bar. We lost about 4,000 members, or about 10% of our membership, due to disaffiliating churches. All right. When I don't include those disaffiliating churches, we had about 42,000 members in at the end of 2022. So during 2023, we had a net loss of about 35,000 members, not due to disaffiliation. Right. A lot of people like to focus on this this slide. However, I do want to caution against that. I think of membership as more indicates how other things are going at a local church. All right. If we really want to have membership turn around, I think we need to focus on other aspects of our ministry, such as outreach, education, and spiritual development. If we focus on those areas, then this slide will hopefully improve indirectly. Right. Moving forward in these year-to-year comparisons, the 2022 data, I removed the disaffiliates so that we can have a more accurate comparison year to year. Anytime that the disaffiliates had more or had a significantly different amount than 10% of the conference, I indicated that in the footnotes too. All right. So you can see on this participation slide, our worship changed only slightly by 1%. The ones that saw a bigger movement was Sunday school had a decrease of about 5%, and Vacation Bible School participation increased 9%. You'll notice disaffiliating churches had about 21 and 28% of the Sunday school and VBS participation in 2022, respectively. Christian formation groups had relatively zero change in 2023. I want to note the large decrease in youth of Christian formation groups. This slide I think of as very important. If we want to see membership increasing, we definitely need to see Christian formation increasing, especially amongst our children, our youth, and our young adults. Local church participation. This one we see growth for the most part, which is a good indicator. These are definitely the types of things that lead to church growth. All right. It's good to see that United Methodist Men, United Women in Faith, their projects are increasing from a low point that they hit during the first period of the pandemic. Right. The assets page, I want to remind you that this is just information from local churches. So these are assets that are controlled, assets and debts controlled by the local churches. This is not conference-wide asset or debt. As in previous years, the value of our property has increased slightly. The debts, mortgages, debt secured by physical assets, those have gone down. Other debt has slightly gone up, right? Disaffiliating churches controlled about 21% or held about 21% of both debt categories in 2022. This next slide looks at salaries and housing, how much local churches are paying their staff. You can see there's just a slight increase from 2022 to 2023. The decrease in lead pastor is probably not based on individuals getting paid less year over year. It's probably more an indicator of fewer persons in that lead pastor role. Right. This slide, looking at local church income. This is based on regular budgeted giving, right? And you'll notice that year to year, it increased 11% from 2022 to 2023. Pledged giving went down slightly, but that was more than overcome by the non-pledged giving, both by known givers and unidentified givers, right? Fundraising increased quite sharply. That other category includes interest on investment as well as rent. This is only regular budgeted giving. It does not include things such as capital campaigns or unexpected memorials. Right? So those numbers are not included on this. This ends anything that I'm saying about year to year reports from 2022 to 2023. Next, I'm going to give some characteristics of the annual conference. Okay. Starting in 2024, we are reorganizing the conference to have 4 districts instead of 5. Here's the distribution of the churches and the membership according to those 4 new districts. You'll notice on these pie charts, the location in the pie chart corresponds to its geographic placement in Wisconsin. The distribution of churches are pretty evenly distributed across the 4 districts. Membership is slightly higher in the 2 southern districts, which definitely it makes sense based on density population of the population density of the Wisconsin Annual Conference. This slide is a histogram. It shows the distribution of our churches based on church size, based on membership. The vertical axis counts the number of churches in each category. So that second bar, the largest, the tallest bar, indicates that there's about 100 churches with membership between 25 and 50 members. And so that's how we would read this histogram. This does not contain 23 churches. There's 23 churches that are above 300 members, and it's just when I included them, it sort of distorts the image. So out of 400 churches, I did not include those 23 just because it makes the figure, it loses some of the details in the figure, right? So this is considered a right skewed graph. So even though our average church size is about 100 members, more meaningful way to measure a typical church would be to look at the median, and our median church size has 58 members. The way we interpret that is about half of our churches have 58 members or fewer, and the other half of our churches have 58 members or more. This next slide is a distribution of our churches based on how much they pay their lead pastor. That's salary plus housing. And so we'd interpret this, that third bar on this graph indicates about 60 churches pay their lead pastor between $12,000 and $18,000 in a year, right? You'll notice that there's a slight increase, a little bump between 42 and 54,000, which is where our minimum salary is for a full-time pastor, right? This slide is an extension of that last one. I looked at clergy compensation for the lead pastor, housing plus salary, and I looked to see how those churches, this is based on distribution of those churches, not individual pastors. And what I did is a church that is paying someone between $46,000 or more, I consider them a church that is capable of paying for a full-time pastor. Some church that's paying 23,000 or more. Someone that can afford a half-time pastor, and 11,500 or more as a church that can afford a quarter-time pastor. And so based on that, This pie chart on the left indicates that about 30% of our churches can afford a full-time pastor. An additional 20% can afford a half-time pastor. So about half of our conference, about half of the churches in our conference cannot afford to pay for even a half-time pastor based on what they're currently paying. Now, again, this is based on churches. So if you've got two churches paying a half-time position and the same person is in both of those positions, well, that's a full-time position. But this is just looking at the distribution of churches, not the distribution of individuals. The pie chart on the right shows how our membership is distributed. So we'd look at this and say, well, 64% of our membership attends churches that can afford a full-time pastor, which makes sense. Larger churches can afford to pay the salaries of full-time pastors. I'm not presenting this with any comment of whether it's good or bad. This is just one more way to interpret the information, the characteristics of the Wisconsin Annual Conference. Last year, I ended my presentation with a challenge to the conference. I had picked out 3 different categories: Christian formation groups, small groups, and community outreach. And I challenged us to increase the percentage of churches that were offering those 3 categories. As good ministry, as ministry that leads to improved conditions for the conference, improved membership for the conference. Unfortunately, in 2023, our numbers did not get much better. All right. 77% of our churches reported some sort of Christian formation group. Only 70% reported some sort of small groups. Only 69% reported that they had engaged in some sort of community outreach. I still would like us to improve that, and so I'm bringing it up again. We are in the C's and the D's if we were looking at grade school grading here. It'd be great for us to get into the 90%. It would be great for us to get into the A's. I say this, and I don't say this lightly. I know that starting programs, organizing programs is difficult. It's especially difficult for small churches with limited resources, right? So that being said, though, I do have some good news. We are a connectional denomination, and our churches are connected to each other by circuits. When I go through the 67 circuits of the Wisconsin Annual Conference, each circuit has indicated that they have some sort of Christian formation group. Each circuit indicates they have some sort of small group. Each circuit indicates that they have some sort of community outreach. So if you find yourself struggling to come up with this on your own as a church, reach out to the other churches in your circuits. See if you can participate with them. See what they're working on and see if you can join them on that. All right. This is a great time to do that. We are restructuring districts, we're restructuring circuits. Based on the last general conference, we are a denomination going in a new direction. This is a great time for you to reach out to the other churches in your circuit and build some new relationships there. If you're not sure which churches are in your circuit, I would suggest you reach out to conference staff. You can ask me and I will track down which other churches are in your circuit as well. In conclusion, I've got 3 things. One, feel free to share this video with others that you think it would find this interesting. If you've got any questions, my email is up on the screen. And then the third thing is continue to get engaged in Christian formation, small groups, and ministry outreach. Thank you for your attention, and thank you for all that you do for the Wisconsin Annual Conference, and thank you for all that you do for your local church. It is appreciated.